So welcome to this short webinar on how to create the questionnaire from scratch in under 5 minutes and send it to a test supplier. So we'll proceed into that in a moment. So the problem that we focus on is connecting up the different parts of a food business. Buying, technical, management, quality, production, engineering. All of these internal departments tend to operate with their own systems. The information that's passed between the different departments tends to be passed in email, spreadsheets and documents, and it's not integrated, and the systems don't often talk to each other. That's something that is changing in the food industry, but there's still a lot of companies out there who are operating at different systems and different departments. Add to that the need to be able to communicate in a consistent way with your suppliers and your supply chain, and also your customers when you bring into the mix things like traceability and supply chain management, etc., and material specifications. Then you've got a lot of risks that can occur throughout this myriad of different connections. So one of the most common causes of food product recall, both in the US and in the UK, is incorrect labeling, which stems from people having the wrong information, whether that's the packaging supplier or the production manager using old stock labels, not using the right ones, or whether the product information hasn't been passed through from the technical department. All of these things are fairly typical of what goes on in the food industry, and these are some of the problems that we try and solve. So how we do that is we use 3i Verify, obviously, put that in the middle, and it helps everyone in a food business communicate with a common language right across the business. It also helps reach out to suppliers and customers, and the purpose of this webinar today, I'm going to show you an example of how we reach out to suppliers and how we manage that process effectively. So we're going to get on to that in a moment. Our overall position is we believe that one food safety verification system can really help food businesses. We operate on a software as a service model, so it's a subscription-based service with no big capital upfront cost. So the cost is spread into the lifetime of the solution. We believe that automating food safety helps reduce costs and risks, particularly driving compliance whilst improving overall performance. But the way we do that is by automating to reduce the admin burden and mistakes that occur from that. So overall, that helps us with the overall goal, which is to help protect customer brands through improved systems. Okay, that's all the marketing stuff out of the way. Let's get on to the 5-minute challenge. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is attempt to create and send a questionnaire from scratch. So how I'm going to do that is that our system has got built-in tools to allow you to basically use building blocks, templates, to create your supplier questionnaires. And the unique thing about these questionnaires is that they're shared in the entire community of users of the 3i Verify solution. So if you create a template and it's got some nice data capture facilities there, you can save that as a template and everyone else can go use that as well. So there's a real community aspect to that. To do that, I've simply selected a company and I'm going to add a new questionnaire, and I'm going to call it Supplier Assessment 5min. This is the last time I'm going to actually spend too much time bothering about my spelling, because it's all about meeting the 5-minute challenge here. So there are two types of questionnaire. One of them is a raw material questionnaire, which is about individual raw materials from your suppliers, and the other one is the supplier questionnaire. I'm going to keep it simple and go for the supplier questionnaire. Now we're just looking at the time at the moment. So here in the UK, it's 16 minutes past 7 in the evening here right now. So I'm just going to note that time down. So that's 7:16 p.m. and I'm going to start. Okay, so I'm going to save the changes. So notice that down here we've got a range of sections that are going to appear in this questionnaire. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to call it Introduction, because we want the supplier that receives this questionnaire to understand what they need to do in the rest of the questionnaire. So I've created that and I've set its order in the list, and I go next, and we get this designer form here, which is completely blank at the moment. I'm going to load in a template from the system, and there it is. It's Introduction. So yeah, I think you can see how this is going to go. But stick with me, because what you'll see is a lot of how this works along the way. So here is the content that's in that section. I can save that, edit that. We can have videos and pictures and all sorts of stuff in there. So that's us done. I'm just going to save that section. That's the first section done. So I'm now going back to the questionnaire list. I'm going to select the 5-minute questionnaire again, and you'll see there's the introduction there. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to enter the next section, which is going to be certification section. I'm to upload certificates, etc., in order to make sure that they are complying with the standards that they say they're operating to. So again, I'm just going to go to the template, select certification, load that template, and this time what we get is a table which will provide a list of certification scheme names that we can maintain in the system, so you've got control over that. The certification number, last audit date, grade achieved, expiry date, and the upload certificate. And they'll be able to add new, you can see it says add new row there, they'll be able to add as many of these as they need to. Underneath that, we've got some assessment questions on that and the ability to upload anything that might not be listed there. So that's the certification section done. So we'll click OK, and we'll go back to the list. And this time we're going to go for the, we're going to go for the general section. So I'm going to go in here. This is going to be a list of general questions for the supplier, and that will help us ask the questions we need and get them to upload any documents we need them to upload. Again, I'm just going to come here, within the templates, there's a general. The next one is going to be pest control. So I'm going to save that. And again, you can see there's questions here, and we can set up any structure that you need here in order to build a questionnaire, and you can build them like this very, very quickly. So the next one was, I think, the pest control. Yep, so we'll go for pest control now, and go save changes, and next. And I think you're getting the idea by now. There's a bit of a pattern being formed here. So I'm just going to load in the pest control one, and I'll do a couple more after this, and you'll see the other ones that I'm going to do there on that list there. So we save that. I'll just quickly look to remind myself what's next. So it's supplier processes. So back to the main menu again. Supplier processes, add a new section. Okay, and go save that. Then we go again and select the next section. So I'll do a couple more. Obviously, you can make these as comprehensive as you need to. You can see I've got recall plan, quality procedures, personnel, ethical trading, etc. So it wouldn't take very long to add the rest of those, another few minutes perhaps. So I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to do the sign-off page, which is the page that we require the supplier to sign off on, and that would then cover us there. So next one is going to be recall plan. So all of these sections have got questions at the back of them, and those questions are editable by you. So you've got complete control not only of the design of the actual questionnaire page that will appear for the supplier, but also the content of that information. So there's recall plan in there now. Okay, so last one is the sign-off page, and I'm looking at, I'm on the 5-minute cusp here, so just quickly get that in there. So add a new section. It's going to be the sign-off page, and we're going to call it sign-off, and go in there and pull in the sign-off section. So here we go, and that is the questionnaire completed. So that was 1922, so that took me 6 minutes. So again, I failed to do it in 5 minutes, but I think you get the idea. You can do this very, very quickly, whether it's 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or even 10 minutes. You can use these templates to create a questionnaire very, very quickly. But the last thing I need to do now is send it, and then I will show you what the supplier would see. So I'm just going to go for my favorite demo one here. So here in the supplier section, we have a number of areas to manage that supplier, including the material and its manufacturing site, which may be different from the actual food company details itself, in the case of a trader or a broker or a wholesaler, for example. We've got contact details in here. So this is the email address that the questionnaire is going to be sent to. I'm the account manager, but I've got a different email address set up for that. And the technical contact has got a password. And to send the supplier approval, we simply come into approvals, select our questionnaire, which is that one there, supplier assessment 5 minutes. We can set that to auto send on expiry. So after it's been approved and it's got an expiry date on it, it can automatically send that again. We simply hit the green button to send it, and that's it. That is now going to the supplier, and then we'll go and log in as the supplier. So the supplier would get that email, which will probably pop through in a moment now once my email is done at send receive. They would log in with the details that are provided in that email, and that would bring them here. And they can see that they've got 9 questionnaires that they need to complete, and they would go in there. So you can see that the questionnaires we have here are a combination of supplier questionnaires and material questionnaires. So these ones are a lot more detailed, these examples at least. So we can look at one of those in a moment. But I'm going to look at this one. That was the supplier assessment 5 minutes, which took us 6 minutes to do. So maybe I should rename it. So if I open that questionnaire now, we get all the sections that we created down here. And the first section is the supplier details section. So we want the supplier to confirm who the contacts are, the address details, etc. And they simply go next onto the next section. The next section is the introduction area that we added into the system. And again, you've got complete control over all of that. But because that's the introduction, we've got the Start Questionnaire button. At every stage through this process, the system is tracking what's been completed and what's not. So you can see both these sections have now been completed. Here's the certification section and the form that we built in the system there. And you can see we've got all the details here. So the supplier would simply add in the details of the certification that they want to put in here, and the expiry date, for example. I'll just do that and change that to 18. And then we've asked for the upload of a certificate so we can check it and make sure it's valid, etc. I'm just going to upload an example document there, which isn't actually a certificate. And of course, they can add more certifications here. I wouldn't do that, but they can add as many as they want here. And if they have other certification that's not listed, they can put in the name here and upload that in here. But I'm just going to put no. And then supplementary information. So the key message here is that each section you can configure to capture exactly what you want. And then the supplier would simply click next, move on to the next section, which is going to be the general section. And then in here, we've got a list of questions that we want that supplier to answer, as is normal with a supplier questionnaire. So I'm just going to begin answering some of those as we go through here. And okay, then any documents you want them to upload, you can specify here. And then they can upload copies of their food safety plan, a HACCP plan, whatever it is that you want from them at that point. Again, so we'll just pick that example document, and then they can put comments about that there and go to the next section. So the next sections are a bit shorter than that one. So this is the pest control section now. Again, it's the same story because we've got the same format, but it doesn't need to be exactly like this. We can set up templates to do whatever you need and build them into the system. So a bit quicker getting through this one. So I'm not going to upload any documents in this one. We'll just go to the next section. And if there were mandatory fields, like the answers to these yes, no questions would be mandatory. So for example, if I were to just go, yeah, let's go save that, then the system will tell me and it will highlight for me what the mandatory fields are that must be completed before you can move on. It will, if you've got partial information put on the screen, it will save it and allow you to move on, however. So any work that you've already done isn't lost. And the supplier can come back in and out of the system as many times as they like, because they may need to go away and get information and then upload it into the system as part of that process. So not far to go now until we get to the sign-off page. So that's a recall plan. We're off to the sign-off page. Notice that there is a feedback section and there's a request feedback button. So what that does is it allows a supplier to ask you questions and you to ask the supplier questions, and for each party to respond to that. And that will be appended to the final supplier approval document or the final material specification document as well. So here's the sign-off section. We've got some declaration stuff up here. We've got some checkboxes we want the supplier to complete, and then they would put in their signatory details. And then we move on to sign off date. And underneath there, you'll see there's a submit for approval button. So that button would not be enabled if they'd missed out any sections here. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and you can see what happens next. The supplier gets an electronic signature, where they need to put the password in. We click sign. It will email the customer to tell them that that's been done, and the supplier will be able to get access to that in their questionnaires list. So one of the key things here now is that the questionnaire is locked, because we don't want the supplier changing anything while we're reviewing it and assessing it, looking to approve it. So you'll see everything that is now read-only in the system. They can look at the documents, but they can't edit or change anything in there. So we're going to nip back over to what you as the customer would see. And so we're going to go to the questionnaire list. And in that questionnaire list at the top, we can see there is the supplier assessment 5 minutes pending as the status, and we can now go in and approve that. So we're just going to go there. Also note that everything the supplier has entered into the system is read-only, so we can't change any of that because we don't want any disputes about information and data and someone saying that, well, you must have changed that. So we lock that down, and that's a big part of the data integrity built into our system. So we've gone past the introduction part of the system. So on the certification side, here are our certifications that's been uploaded. You can click on those documents that will download and open them for you. So there's a copy of a process flow, for example, there, but that could equally be a copy of the certificate. You've got questions here, any supporting documentation is there as well. And you'll notice that we've got some official use only fields here. So this is where the assessment part takes place. And again, this is a very basic assessment, and it's really, in this example here, it's just checkboxes. So have we reviewed the certification? Is it suitable? Is the supplier compliant? And are you as an assessor, are you competent? And then you can put any notes in here and then approve that section. So once all the sections have been approved, the questionnaire itself can be approved and the supplier with it. So again, we'll just come down here, we'll cancel, we need to do the checks. So we do our checks and we go approve the supplier and move on to repeat that with the other sections as well. Okay, just scroll down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a couple more to do. So you notice you can use the menu on the side or the kind of next and previous buttons at the bottom. Both do the same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to approve that. In the sign-off section, we have the sign-off details here, and you'll see that the supplier's details are all there already in terms of their sign-off, and now we're just putting ours in. Right, I'm not going to worry too much about that, and I'll put the sign-off date in. Okay, and now we can click Approve Questionnaire. The system knows our password because we're already logged in. Click Sign, and that will generate a PDF of the supplier approval, store it against the supplier, and any documents that they've uploaded will also be stored against the supplier, and then you can review them and monitor those documents, including any certification as part of that. And then I'll open it to questions. I'm not going to go into any more technology. I'll just open it to questions and see questions you might have. So maybe you can start thinking about any questions you have now. Okay, so notice that I've got an option to unapprove that. So we could unapprove it for internal reapproval if we found something that wasn't right, or we could unapprove it and resend it to the supplier if we wanted them to go through the approval process again. But over here is the document. This is the final document that's been created by the assessment. So you can see all the information is in there. And then down here, we've got the certification schemes. Again, this PDF document has got links to the underlying documents that were uploaded by the supplier. So it provides a single point of audit trail for everything to do with that supplier, its approval, all of its underlying information, and also for any raw materials that you purchase from suppliers. So all of the certification, certificates of analysis, all of that information can be linked and hot linked straight to here. And all you need to do is click on that, and if you're logged in, you can get to that. If you're not logged in, you need to actually log in with a valid username and password. So one example of this is if you've got material specifications and your customer's asking you for it, you can send it to them and they'll be able to read all the document. If you don't want them to see the underlying information, you just don't give them a username and password. But otherwise, you could give them a username and password, and they could log in and see all the underlying information as well. So it's a very, very powerful way to share information with customers as well as gather information from suppliers. So I'll show you another example of, just trying to find one that's maybe a bit more realistic, so that's been approved, and it'll be a material specification. So let's go for this one here, let's say. So this will give you an idea of the kind of thing there. There's, you've got certifications there. This one will capture things like the composition, so it'll give you all the recipe breakdown, for example, where you can track additives, nutritional information, allergens, and risk assessment of the allergens, and material specs for the GMO assessment, palm oil. So you name it, we can actually design that in the system and capture any kind of information in a consistent, standards-based way. So that's all I'm going to cover today. Does anyone have any questions?
Just one question. I was just interested in the actual questions that are in the questionnaire. What are they based on? Is that something that's set, or is it based on some industry standard?
Well, you can set up any kind of questions that you want, and there, it's not here in this one because it's not switched on, but there is a facility to edit the questions in the system, which I could show you another time. But so if you've got a way of working that you want to have in there in terms of your question set, you can put that in. One of the other things that's coming with the system is, you'll notice on the main menu here, we've got a documents section. So this documents section allows us to manage all of the food safety documentation, for example, but more than that, it allows us to link it to standards such as BRC standard, SQF standard, IFS, whatever the standard is, we can actually map it to that standard. And it also gives us the ability to manage approval processes, comments, change requests, obsolescence, and all of these kinds of things. It's a great way to manage all of your documentation so that anyone in the organization can access it, interact with it, and work in a collaborative way to make sure that everything's under control.
Okay. Right, because our technical department does have what we call a low-risk questionnaire, which sounds very much along these lines, but I'm not 100% sure where all the questions are generated from. But I just wondered if we could do changes. As you say, it looks like we can, yeah.
Yeah, no, you absolutely can. So you can control both the format of the questionnaires and also the content. So that includes the lists of questions and drop-down lists and options and all of these kinds of things.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? No. Okay. So, well, if any of this has been of interest to you or would be interested to colleagues, do drop me an email. You've got my details. We will make a recording of this. Well, we've been recording this one, but we'll produce that recording in the next 24 hours or so and send that out to you. Feel free to share that with your colleagues, and do let us know if we can be of any help with this issue or some of the other areas that CI Verify helps with. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.